Hi, all. Thanks very much for joining us. Pleased to invite you to this next edition of our Fireside Chat series. We're very happy to have with us Patrick Downey, Patty, who is President and CEO and Director of Orezone Gold. We hope that everyone's staying safe and healthy in these difficult times, and look forward to having these chats where we can all sort of keep plugged into the mining community. For those of you who don't already know, my name is Jen Poirier, and I am a partner at Castles. I'm also an executive of YMP. So before getting started, just a few preliminary things. Firstly, we have to obviously take time to thank our sponsors, because without them, we wouldn't be able to put on events such as this. We want to specifically thank KPMG, Castles, Integra, New Placer Dome, Equinox Gold, Verify, and Solaris. So thanks again for their continued support. Also have to extend a thanks to YMP and our exec team. In particular, a big thank you to my fellow members, Mike Wooler from KPMG and Mal Karwowska from First Mining. You'll be hearing from Mal in a moment as well. Just a sort of standard fare that we will be recording this video. And obviously the intention is that we will not be capturing your image intentionally, but in the event that it is unintentionally, you acknowledge by registering that your image or voice may be captured. Also, just to clarify, this webinar is provided for informational purposes only and obviously does not constitute any particular advice. Same as in our prior events, the structure of today's event will be about 30 to 40-minute discussion between Patty and Mal, followed by a Q&A period. We encourage you to type in questions. You can ask those using your Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And not that I'm an IT expert, but to the extent that you do need any help with IT issues, video or sound, first and foremost, we suggest quitting the webinar and re-entering, but feel free to ask any questions to the extent you think we might be able to lend a hand. And with that, I'm just going to do a brief introduction to give you a little bit of background on Patty. So as I said, Patty has already been introduced as the President and CEO and Director of Orezone Gold. He has about over 30 years of international mining experience. Very briefly, and I'll note this does not do justice to Patty's significant career and expertise in the sector. He has held previously the position of CEO and Director of Elgin Mining, Aura Minerals, and previously Viceroy Exploration before its acquisition by Yamana Gold in 2006. He's also held numerous senior engineering positions at several large-scale global mining companies, and also held operating positions at several mining projects for Anglo American in South Africa. He's also a member of boards of Claude Resources and Dalradian Resources before their recent successful acquisitions. He's also a member of the board of a number of active resource companies. So with that, I will turn it over to Mal and Patty.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks everyone for joining us on a nice summer day in Vancouver. Patty, thank you so much. I'm really excited to have you as a guest today. I think you've got some wise words to share.
You're welcome. I'm really excited to actually be part of this. It's I didn't realize I was at that age where I'm actually passing on advice to people, but I am, I guess.
You have significant advice. Our pre-call, I feel like I had some wise words from you in terms of my career path and advice, so appreciate it and excited for you to share that with everyone. So let's just kick things off a little bit by you sharing your background with everybody from your own words, and how did you end up in mining?
Well, I graduated in 1982 in Ireland, or in the north of Ireland, actually, in engineering. And there was not a lot happening there. I mean, in terms of jobs, it was pretty bleak. The troubles were raging at the time. And I mean, I could have got a job using explosives, but I'm not too sure it would have been legal. And so I got offered a position in South Africa. I had no really idea too much about the company, but it was a job. So I took it. And I left, went over there. It was really fantastic. I didn't know anybody when I got there. Met some great people in the business. Went right underground at a mining complex known as Val Reefs. It was probably the most profitable mining jurisdiction in the world at that time. but very technically oriented, which I loved. I mean, it was, that was deep level mining, refrigeration, transportation. So from my point of view, it was great. And I think that the one thing I vividly remember from that was when I first started and got off the plane in Johannesburg, and Anglo had this very structured training program, and they give you a mentor who looks after you. And I remained in touch with this guy until he died just recently, actually. And he asked me, he said, look, you've got a degree. What's the most important question you will ask as an engineer in the mining business? I looked at him. I sort of was taken aback, and I said, oh, really, I don't know. I've got so many questions. He said, well, the most important question is why. And I said, yeah. He said, well, it's why. Why did it take this long? Why does it cost us much? Why do we do it this way? Why don't we do it this other way? And he said, ask people those questions. Otherwise, you won't learn. You won't understand what's going on. If you play dumb, you'll be dumb. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And my first piece of advice to young people in the business, no matter what side of it they're in, ask somebody. If you don't understand it, ask them. And I learned a ton that way. And he also said very quickly, you will pick out the people that will want to help you and the people who don't want to help you. And you'll figure that out pretty quickly, and then you'll find your way through the business. And it served me well throughout my career.
That's incredible. I mean, that's advice that is not just even career oriented. Why, right? People love to assume things. You should always be asking. I mean, even from a learning perspective.
Yeah, it's a simple question, but he was right. And it was always, why. And it came, about I was working underground, and I was doing quite well, and, learning the business. And, it was really interesting. The underground mining in South Africa, it was narrow tech, you had, people were working at the face with jackleg stopes, but then you had this very technical aspect of it from the point of view of cooling the mines, hoisting it, all of that sort of stuff. And then I got this call about 3 years into my career. Did I want to look at another opportunity within Anglo? It was the same guy, he talked to me. He was still my mentor, and I said yes. And so went up for an interview, and I said, well, what's the project and where is it? And he said it's just outside Johannesburg. So it was like a single guy 3 years in going to Johannesburg. Wow, okay, this is great. And he said, we're going to reclaim these old tailings dumps. And I said, oh, okay, well, what's the grade? He said 0.5 of a gram. And I went, what? Because I'm used to, at Val Reefs, it was 12 grams a ton all day, every day. And he said 0.5 of a gram. And he said, and we recover 50%. And I went, so 0.25 of a gram? That's what we're mining? He said, yes. I said, well, that's ridiculous. And he said, what's your question? And I said, well, yeah, why will that work? And so he started to explain it to me, and it was all about productivity, unit costs. We were moving, one person with a high pressure water gun was moving 100,000 tons a day. So, I learned very quickly not to assume that just because you've got grade, you've got profit. It was all about how you looked at anything a little bit differently. And the idea came from watching English China clay in England. They would wash the kaolin with these high pressure guns, and somebody came up with the idea of using those machines to wash the tailings and just put them into tanks and leach them. And it was a highly, highly profitable mine. Our JV partners at the time were the Lundins, Adolf Lundin. He actually wrote about it in his book, and it was one of their huge successes, as it was for us as well. So I learned, again, early on, not to judge, a project by its grade or whatever. Look more deeply into it. Why will it work? Why will it not work? Etc. And it was again very good advice for me.
That's fascinating. So, and those are pretty memorable things. Is there any kind of stories that you have though from earlier on in your career that you'd want to share? Anything that stands out for you?
Boy, I'm going to have to go back. You know, look, it's being around good people. This business it's a fantastic business. I mean, you get to see the world. You know, I did not realize when I stepped into mining 35 plus years ago that I would be able to get to do what I do. But you know, honestly, you know, be it on the operations, be it, you know, when you're running a company, you know, the advice you get is just have good people around you and don't be afraid to take their advice. Even, you know, now I tend to try and run my companies with people who want to be, you know, part of the company, who are not afraid to question what your where you're going with the company, who feel that they have something to offer to the company, and good people will always do that, and you'll make the right decisions at that time. I mean, so I truly like having great people around me, and I love. I'm not a geologist. You know, as I joke, you know, geology is my best subject. Ask me the capital of Spain. Um, but you know, it's fascinating to me why a deposit is where it is and how you can mine it. I also think have some humility in mining. You know, we really are working in other people's backyards, particularly, you know, how we mine today in all parts of the world. And it's up to us to show a really good example to the communities that we work in, and the jurisdictions that we work in. Just have some humility around those people. I mean, you know, and treat them like you would want to be treated yourself, and listen to their concerns, listen to their hopes and aspirations. Don't overpromise them things, and do things right, because you know that's what we should always look out to. I mean, you know, mining is a fantastic business. We can't do without it in the world, no matter what anybody tells you. You know, and you know, it's not, you know, the only we talk about sustainable mining. There's no such a thing. The only thing sustainable that I know is farming. You know, continuously. You know, sustainable development is a misnomer in my opinion. But there are things you can do to ensure that the communities and the people around mines are properly looked after and truly do benefit from what you do. But mining brings in infrastructure, it brings in better ways of life for people as long as we do it correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it comes back to respect ultimately too, right? For the communities and everything that you're doing every day as you
Yes.
advance assets. So
Yes.
how long did you spend in Africa? That's a pretty neat place
Oh
to
boy.
start your career.
Well, I spent 5 years there. I came over to Canada. You didn't have a position, you know. I came over in 1987, New Year's Eve, cheapest flights ever, flying New Year's Eve. That's all the money I had at the time, and or we had at the time. And then I got a job actually Papua New Guinea with Placer Dome over on Misima Island, and then Porgera, and then was working with a consulting company. We started our own engineering construction group, myself and four other guys. I truly enjoyed that. Uh, but you know, at the end of the day, I mean, I was a consultant, and I wanted, you know, there was other people making money. I could see what they were doing. The junior market, I didn't truly understand it. I had no understanding of the public markets, but I was doing some work for them, and I had decided that, you know, I sold my share in the company I was with, and was doing my own thing as a consultant, and doing quite well at it. And one of the companies I was working for, it had 3 mines in Zimbabwe, and they weren't doing well, and the CEO left, just literally left. And the board asked me would I join them, and then I became president. I don't know how I became president. To this day, I'm still trying to figure out how the hell did I become president of that company. And I did, and you know, went to Zimbabwe to try and sort things out. We got things more or less turned around. Gold was 270, 280. And then Mr. Mugabe went nuts in Zimbabwe, and the gold price was where it was. We had to sell at the official exchange rate. It was the only country in the world that had hyperinflation without a war. I was arrested, thrown in prison for no particular reason. Um, I woke up one day with a massive, it's called a Legovan, a lizard in my front room. They obviously the government trying to intimidate us. A few other things occurred, but we eventually got out of there. We sold our assets, cleared off our debts, and got out. I wouldn't say it was the most enjoyable time of my life, to be honest with you. One famous incident, my VP of exploration, who still works for me, by the way, we had just laid off a bunch of people. They had threatened us quite a lot, you know, that we were caught in a little sort of a porta cabin. They were threatening to burn us. We eventually got them calmed down. We got everything sorted out. I was driving to go home to the airport, and as we're driving along the road, all of a sudden the vehicle just went off the road, and you know, so they loosened all the nuts on the wheels, and one of the wheels fell off as we were driving along the road. So we got that fixed and got to the airport, and I realized it was time to abandon Zimbabwe. But it was good because I learned a lot about how to run a company, the public markets, etc. I had a great person working for me. She was the corporate secretary, looked after all of that, made my life a lot easier in terms of running the company. I learned a lot from her about filings and reportings and what a public company was all about. And we then got wind of an asset in Argentina that a company called Viceroy Gold was spinning out. Viceroy became a merchant bank, and we acquired it for $7.5 million of shares in our company. We kept the name Viceroy because they were listed in the TSX at that point, because we had in Zimbabwe we had actually been delisted, would you believe? And it was a large, low-grade deposit, 2,500 meters up above sea level, and people had said it can't be mined. It was, you know, you had to truck it maybe 30 or 40 kilometers downhill and then go all the way back uphill in very rugged country. But as a young engineer, I visited a limestone quarry, and it was outside Banff, would you believe? And I remember saying to the guy, well, what's your tonnage throughput? He told me. I said, what fleet size do you have? He told me 2 trucks. I went, well, 2 trucks to move that ton is ridiculous. He said, no, we drop it down through an ore pass. I said, in an open pit? He said, yeah. Showed it to me. I said, oh, wow. Well, can you show me? You know, went down, looked at how it fed into the jaw crusher, how it went into the cement plant. I went, wow, that's brilliant. He said, yeah, we use gravity to transport the ore. Cheap. So here we have a project stuck up on a mountain in Argentina. We drilled it off. It was what we thought it was. We were building it, putting in an ore pass, 350-meter ore pass, and we got bought out by Yamana for $600 million. So hey, all good.
It goes back to your point on asking about why, right?
Yeah, and it was why. And people didn't believe we could do it. But it was simple. It was no, like when I explained it to people, it's no different than having an ore pass underground. It's just an ore pass. We just happened to have at the side of the mountain a beautiful flat area for heap leach. We took it out there. Yamana built the project. We started it. They kept my team together, and I stayed for about 6 months and built it. And it was a huge success, great success. And again, it was why? Well, why not? Basically. And the Zimbabwe disaster became a success in Argentina, and it was great. A great group of people again, great team of guys, and it was all a lot of fun at the end of the day.
I'm impressed that after that experience, you stuck with mining and stuck with being a CEO of a company. We actually do have a question that I think ties into everything you've been talking about, so I'm just going to hop to that.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the factors or motivators that informed your decision to leave the majors and attracted you to the junior mining side of the industry?
Great question. I loved working for Anglo at the start. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better career path in terms of, learning the ropes and the technical aspects of the business, etc. I could see the wastage that was going on. I just knew that I would never remain within the bureaucracy, that the decision-making requirements within a company that size, it just was not my, fitted with my personality. Even though I truly enjoyed, the business and what they did, etc., it was obvious to me that I was not going to be, that ceiling. I had to keep moving up very slowly, and I wasn't going to remain there. And so, I'm more of an entrepreneur. I like to think on my feet, and so, and I'm also, unfortunately, a bit mouthy. So. In the Anglo-American meetings, when somebody would say something, I would go, "What? Why would you say that?" And so people would look at me. But I much prefer the cut and thrust of an entrepreneurial environment.
I appreciate that only because I've had experience working kind of in more of a bureaucracy and then more on the entrepreneurial side, and I would agree with you. It's easier to actually feel like you have an opinion and a place at the table, I think, when you're in a more entrepreneurial environment. In some of the larger companies, like, it's challenging just because of the bureaucracy, because there are steps you have to take, right?
Yeah, and just, and I would say my style, even though, like, I mean, there's a couple of people who work with me right now might go, no, that's not correct. But I would say my style is, even though you're on, a lot of entrepreneurial guys, I mean, we've all got egos. We become CEOs because we believe we should be the CEO. And that's an ego, and just plain and simple. And you have to have one to generally want to get there. But you've got to also, in an entrepreneurial setting, allow people around you to contribute. You can't be the biggest voice in the room. You can't have it where people are afraid to speak until you speak, etc. You still, I think, successful entrepreneurial organizations still encourage real commitment from the people in the room. And, so that's also important, in my opinion, to have successful organizations.
Well, and encourage the why, right? Because if people are just yes, you don't actually, I think, get further ahead as a team, because you're not thinking about all the why and all the risks.
Correct. I mean, now when people say why in any of our meetings, I go, well, because I said so.
Squash them down a little bit. I wanted to chat a little bit about your M&A experience, given how significant it is, and wondering if you can touch, on one of your favorite transactions that you have worked on and why it stands out amongst all the deals that you've done.
Yeah. Look, for me, I go back to my youth as a young guy in Ireland with, running around with my dad and another guy I worked with who was a very successful businessman. And it was always about trust and a handshake. And my dad would always tell me when we were, buying and selling cattle or sheep or something, he said, don't be too greedy. Leave something on the table for the next guy, because, if you deal fairly with someone, they'll always come back and deal with you again. And, so that was always something that stuck with me as a person. When I look at an M&A deal, I always look at it being, is this fair for us and is this fair for them? I mean, I'm not trying to look from their side all the time, but I always, you're generally, unless you're taking cash, and you're taking shares, is this going to fit in? Is it going to do well for everyone? And, my favorite one, well, I've got two favorites, I guess. One would be Viceroy again. I mean, I wanted to build that. It was my absolute passion to build that. I wanted to prove to people that Overpass was going to be, the right thing. But at the end of the day, we were getting a lot of, inbounds, etc. And Yamana came, and I got to say that I didn't know Yamana. I had no idea who they were, really. I mean, we had other people, you know, Glamis and Kinross and whatever were knocking on the door. And, you know, when their corp dev guy called me, I said, look, you know, really, I mean, you know, I'm not going to let you look at this project until I see what you have first. And he goes, well, we're the guys who are going to acquire you. I said, well, look, honestly, Greg, I really, you know, I don't know anything about you. You know, how could I tell my board, you know, that I want to do a deal here? And so he called me back a couple of days later. Said, okay, we can organize a trip. You know, we can bring you to what we think is our two key projects. One was built and the other one was being built. It was called Chapada. And myself and my GM, we went, oh my God, this is going to be a winner. And their stock doesn't reflect it. And so if they buy us and this starts, you know, this will be a great deal for everybody. So we got into negotiations with them. We got a good deal. When I announced it, a lot of my shareholders went, what are you doing? And, you know, one in particular was really upset with me. And I went and met with him. I said, no, I'm telling you, this is going to work. And these guys are going to start this project, and it's going to be a huge cash flow project. And this stock's going to go even higher. And I wasn't sure how high it would go, but we got a premium of about 33%, which was pretty good. Within 6 months, that stock had doubled because Chapada came online. It started according to plan, was producing copper and gold, and it hit the cycle at the right time, and boom, we got another lift. So it was a great win for everybody. And the other thing why I loved it was Yamana built the project more or less as the way we'd said. So we were vindicated in our development. So I was really, really happy. And it was my first big M&A. I got ahead of myself, I would say. I started to think that I was, you know, big time Charlie a bit about that because, you know, everybody was sort of patting me on the back. But at the end of the day, mining's still mining, and you're only as good as your last deal. The other deal that I loved was Claude. And I was retired. The Claude guys asked me to join the board. I went, no. You know, Claude was like a complete and utter disaster. And you know, the one guy, Brian Booth, kept bugging me about coming and looking at it and whatever. So I did. And I went, oh my God, these guys are onto something. And they were losing money like crazy, and they were in big time debt. So great group of guys. Oh my God, I can't you know, talk highly enough about the young guys there, how great they were, how hard they worked, how much they listened. And we got together and we come up with a plan to turn the project and the mine around, and it worked. And we got it working, and it got it working well. And we had luck. And then what was then Silver Standard, but SSR Mining approached us, and you know, and we got into a bit of a competitive process. But at the end of the day, they bought us. And why we liked the deal was because Paul, who was the CEO of SSR, I said, well, Paul, why would you? What attracts you about this project? Why would you want to do the deal with us? And he said, well, we need to grow. I've tried to grow in other areas. I keep losing because other guys have got, you know, better currency than me. So I've got to learn what pond I can fish in. I really like what you guys have done, and we think there's growth here. We think there's more growth. And we visited their Marigold mine, and it was a top-notch operation, great group of people. And again, we felt it was a really, really good merger. And little Claude ended up with 33% of the combined entity. And today it's been a huge success. And Claude, you know, sorry, SSR, and I have to take my hat off to them. They did better than we ever thought they would with the CB mine, and they've expanded the throughput, and they've increased production, and they've reduced costs, and they've done things that they said they would do. So it was a great merger for both companies. And you know, I still keep in contact with those guys. That, you know, I think they're one of the best run companies. I'll see what happens now with this new merger with, you know, with the Turkish outfit. But you know, I take my hats off to Paul and his team and what they did. And they also took a leap of faith because Claude had 14 years of miserable history, and they did, we did a good job. They did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, SSR, I think, is one of the outstanding stories in this, even in a down market, basically, right?
Absolutely.
To perform.
Yeah.
Do you think it comes down to your point on partnerships? Because I think that's ultimately what a lot of these deals come down to, is finding the right partner, because especially if you're taking stock, you want that stock to then continue to perform if your shareholders are going to hold on to it. Do you think it's really, if you were going to kind of come up with one topic out of all of that, is it partnerships? Is it finding the right partners when you do an M&A deal?
Well, look, I think one of the key things that I have learned over the years, I am always a big shareholder in the companies that I'm involved in. And so when you do a deal, I'm not doing it for a change of control. I'm not doing it that's not why I do a deal. I do a deal because generally I'm a big shareholder. And I look upon it that way. If I'm going to tell the shareholders that this is a good deal, it's because I, as a shareholder, truly believe it's a good deal. I might not be right, but I've done my homework, and it's a partnership. It's when you get into the cut and thrust of M&A, there's all sorts of things happen. But at the end of the day, do you fundamentally want to do it? And do you trust the people on the other side of the room that they're going to do what they say they're going to do? I've walked away from projects where I just go, no, we're not doing a deal with these guys. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. And the social issues don't work for us. I also, there's always who's going to be the CEO. I always go, look, I don't need a job. I can be the CEO if I think strongly enough that I should be the surviving CEO. I will say I think I should be that guy. But if not, and I think that the other parties have got good operating people, they're well run, and we should do the deal with them, then I'm happy to step aside because I'm a shareholder, and I'll make the money because the company will do well.
I wish there were more CEOs like that. I think, for shareholders, that's the key thing, knowing when it's the right time to step away. And too many CEOs don't know that, to be honest. But can you talk a little bit about how you build a position? Because that was actually something interesting that came up on our pre-call, and that you just touched on is, the importance of being a big shareholder of your own company. So how do you work towards actually being a big shareholder?
Okay, well, that came about by accident in the first place. So when I was in Zimbabwe, running that company in Zimbabwe, we had no money, and so I couldn't get paid, and I was literally living, off my credit card, and I had left a wife and two kids back in Canada. I was in Zimbabwe. We had to take a second mortgage out. We actually had to take the kids out of private school at the time. It was sort of, and so at the end of the day, we cleaned it up, but they had no money to pay me, so I took it in stock, and I didn't know if it was going to work or not, but it fairly motivated me to find a project to make it work, which was Viceroy. And so I saw, my God, if the more you own, the better you do. Now, not everybody's capable of doing that because they don't have the capital to do it but I think if you, over the years, take a position in your company, and boy, you start to watch things a bit more closely. You become more attuned to it. You understand what dilution's all about, etc. You're better tuned to what, your company way better than most people at that time. So I got it by having to take it, but I learned pretty quickly it was a great way to be leveraged to the company. Some of the things that drove me mad, to be honest with you, in the last cycle was some of the pay packets that CEOs were taking out of mining companies. It was disgraceful. And the companies were losing money. The share prices were getting hammered, yet some of these people were taking 5, 8, 10 million per annum out of mining companies. I never got it. And they didn't own a share in the company.
Yeah, well, I think I've personally, in the last sort of year and a half, building a position in First Mining, despite it being very small, it's taught me a lot about that per share. Like, it's share price, it's not just market cap, right?
Mal, it doesn't matter where you start, as long as you start. Owning your first stock and learning all about it, I teach my kids, you start learning about the market and also don't panic.
Mm-hmm.
The gold mining sector, somebody once told me, and it's so true, very, very well-known mining financier, gold mining market is very much like that little girl in the nursery rhyme. There was a little girl who had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead. And when she was good, she was very, very good. But when she was bad, she was horrid, because it goes up like nothing and it drops like nothing. And you have to understand that about this, you don't fall in love with it and you don't panic when it goes wrong. You've just got to understand when to take money off the table, when's the right time to buy a project, when's the right time to sell a project. I don't get it right all the time, but I've got it right a few times. But it's a market like nothing else. When it's good, it's crazy good. When it's bad, it's awful.
Yes, definitely. I mean, we're dealing with a volatile market, but thankfully to the upside, I think, right now.
Yeah.
Patty, can you touch a little bit on, so you were in retirement and you came out of retirement to run Orezone.
Yeah.
Can you touch on that and kind of what was the deciding factor to do that?
Yeah, so I was on a number of boards, which were a lot of fun, and there were boards that I was enjoying because, as a board member, you've got to remember you're not management. You're a board member. You're there to give advice, to give guidance, to pick up the phone when need be, but also to understand what the company's about and be able to step in when you feel that you need to step in. But management is management, and they've got to run the company. But they were interesting boards. They were boards that I was getting a lot out of personally. Dalradian, obviously the north of Ireland, gold mining. I knew it from many years ago. I brought it over to Canada in 1995 or 96, I think. And it was great to see the success there. Claude, a bunch of guys who convinced me to step in and that I would be able to help and give advice. Victoria, guys I'd worked with in the past, John McConnell, Sean Harvey, love them to bits, great guys to work with, worked their asses off, were convinced they were going to build a mine and did extremely well at it. And then Orezone. Why did I step back into Orezone? Well, it was drifting. And it was one of those things where the CEO had just been there too long, things weren't happening, people had lost interest in it, and we decided, and a few things happened. And I was quite vocal about change needed to come, and so the board turned to me and said, "Okay, well, you better do it then." And so I wasn't sure I was going to take it on full time. To be frank with you, I spent 4 or 5 months, I guess, really diving into the data, looking at what the project, the problems had been, and where. And then started to think, oh, well, we can fix this. And then, we started to look as if we could fix it. And then RCF came in and they put 35 million in. So, well, now I'm stuck because
I'm sure you were a part of that condition, right? You weren't allowed to go anywhere.
So, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been hard work. Burkina, woo, it's had its challenges. And we've put a great team of people together. I thoroughly enjoy working with them. I'm not too sure they'd say the same, but I do thoroughly enjoy working with them. And we've advanced it a lot. I think we would be building right now if COVID hadn't happened. We would be actually constructing right now, and I think it would be a lot of fun. It will be a lot of fun. So you have to be able to. You got to be motivated. You got to want to get up in the morning. You got to feel as if you're going to contribute. That there's something there that makes you think that it's not all roses, but you should always come to work motivated, and that's what right now I'm thoroughly enjoying it, to be honest with you.
So outside of COVID, you mentioned that as a challenge. What has been the other biggest challenge you faced in coming back to run a company, do you think?
Oh, well, it was, the name, we had a lot of negativity that we had to overcome. And then of course, Burkina sort of blew up, West Africa in general, but Burkina, a beautiful country, great people, very, very, I thought peace loving. And then the terrorist thing happened. It actually started to make me homesick. And So we've had to deal with that and the issues around that. And, but everybody has stuck together. We still got the same group of people, including the expats in the field. Everybody understands where we're going. And so we know we've got a good project, and we'll build it. So, and it's always that challenge is, when the crisis comes, is don't panic. It's not something we brought about. Just, let's think through it, and again, having good people around you who will not panic, who will be, willing to come up with and help with solutions. All our guys from, our team down in Burkina, our team here, we all put our heads together with how we go about next steps and how we do things and how we conduct our business. And so far that's worked. And it's again about having that team of dedicated, hardworking professionals around you.
Yeah, that's it's interesting too. I mean, I think challenges, in my opinion, they're difficult, but you learn something from them. So if you have no challenges in your career, what are you going to learn?
Absolutely. The person who's never made a mistake has really learned nothing. I mean, success has many mothers, and failure is a bastard child. I mean, the number of guys, oh yeah, I worked on that project. If it's a success, if it's a failure, I've never met anybody who's worked on a failure, but I've worked on many failures. I mean, but it's amazing how people aren't willing to own up and go, yeah, we got that wrong. Here's what we got wrong, and here's what we do in the future.
Well, and I don't see failures as necessarily failures because of the learnings that you get out of them. They actually.
Oh no, absolutely,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's you only learn how to pick yourself up by falling down.
So with COVID, given you talked about that a little bit, and this is kind of what's launched and kickstarted all these series, and virtual is the current environment we're in. What are your thoughts in terms of how that's going to impact things going forward? And my dog is now the one destroying things right now.
Well, look, I think a couple of simple things is, will we want to jump on airplanes and go to New York to market for, in front of 3 or 4 groups when we could do it, this way? I think that it will definitely change that, our travel and our marketing. You still need face-to-face with people. That's just the way business is run and business is done. It definitely has affected how operations are run. I mean, hopefully we will find a cure soon and things can get back to normal. But it's taught us how to be a bit more cooperative. I mean, amongst people now you have to be on top of everything, and because it's remote. So popping in to see things doesn't happen anymore. So it's definitely been more in my opinion, doing a lot of these Zoom and Teams meetings too many too often, you get fatigued with it a little bit. I do. You just can't walk into somebody's office and shoot the breeze with them, etc. So it's adapting. Hopefully, from an operational point of view and from a construction point of view, it will improve, how things are done. It'll improve our, how we treat people a little bit better, how we look at our essential services. Boy, oh boy, have they ever stepped up and had to be in the front line. And, people like that, I mean, paramedics at mines and nurses and doctors at mines, they've been stressed to the hilt with a lot of this. So I think hopefully we'll treat people a little kinder going forward.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think it's kindness goes a long way, even if you don't see it in the moment. To your point, though, I think everyone has dealt with Zoom fatigue. I've definitely have. It's actually labeled as a thing called Zoom fatigue. Yeah. On the topic of current environment too, do you have any views? I mean, gold's almost hit 1900 today. I mean, we're in an interesting environment. Do you think it moves through 2000? Do you have any views on it?
Mal, I've been in the gold mine business 35 years. I am not a gold bug. I joined it to become because it was a business, and it was a business that I was just happened to find myself in. the two things I know about gold is, I don't have to put it on the shelf and wait for somebody to buy it. But I'm not sure what price I'm going to get. But right now, if I look at all the cycles I've been through, this one really does feel like it's going to be different, and for a number of reasons. Number one, the debt is now global and it's getting bigger. And it's not just the US debt, it's debt all over the world. Unemployment is high and fear is at an all-time high. So if you can't see the scenario where gold's going to be strong and continue to get stronger, I don't know. I mean, it's absolutely, the last cycle, I didn't believe in $1,900 gold. But now I believe in 2000. Now, do I want to be in a world where gold is rocketed to 3,000? I'm not too sure what that world looks like for me or for anybody in that regard. It could be not a great place to live. But do I see it going through 2000? Absolutely, I do. And I see it staying there for a while. The other thing I like about where we are today is in the last cycle, a lot of people, and a lot of these were the CEOs who I talked about getting paid millions of dollars, they made decisions that I just shook my head. They just did not look like good business decisions. M&A was crazy. They were buying things that, again, they never became mines. Or if they became mines, cost them, they ruined their balance sheets. Now, CEOs have been weeded out. You've got good guys running bigger and intermediate mining companies. They have strengthened and cleaned up their balance sheets. They're running their operations way better than they were before. Their cost structure is way better than it was before. And their decision making, I believe, is way better than it was in that cycle. So I see that gold mining companies are going to be hugely profitable. It's going to attract big time investors on the generalist side to the sector. It can't not but do that. And that will trickle down to the mid-tier and to us juniors, etc., going forward. As long as we continue to manage and advance the projects, this will be a really, really great time to be in the mining business. But remember, it will turn at some point.
Make sure you take some money off the table.
Hopefully I am fully retired by that point.
It is. I mean, this is a very interesting market. I've only been in the mining sector since 2008, so I got to see the last little blip. But all the points you're making about just operating costs, the fact that people, I think, know that they need to run their mines like a business now. It's not just about when will I sell it. It's how do I make it profitable. It's interesting to also see the equities connected, right, at this point from the gold price.
Yeah, I say that to every, all the people that work with us, the young engineers. It's, look, we can't dictate the price of gold. If I could do that, I'd have a different job. I'd get up in the morning and press a button and go back to bed again. That's not the way life works for us in the mining business, the gold mining business. But what we have to look at is what are the input costs that go towards producing an ounce of gold? What are the unit man hours? What are the machine man hours? I really love to dig deep into what it costs to mine a ton of rock and how am I going to make it long-term sustainable. And it's so different. I mean, you can have grade, but high costs. Like we ran a mine in Sweden, the underground grade was 1.6 grams per ton. And we were making good money simply to do with productivity. So it's all about what it costs. What are the costs that go into producing the ounce of gold?
So we do.
How sustainable going forward?
Oh, sorry. We do have some questions, Patty, so I'm going to hop over to those. In addition to the direct impacts of COVID that you mentioned, do you also see areas of collateral damage? Will things like ESG receive less attention as a result?
Boy, I hope not. I think that ESG is a vitally important part of our business. As I talk about around communities, etc., and leaving a long-term, lasting legacy in an area. So I hope not. I mean, I don't think so. I think ESG will remain a key focal point going forward. Most people in the mining sector that I know fully understand it. We as mining guys, we don't go out to wreck the world. We love being outside. We love the, that part of life. And, and I think it's important that we carry that enthusiasm into our ESG programs.
And I guess get a little bit creative, right? I mean, I do think that we're trying to find ways to adapt and use virtual to our advantage.
Oh yeah, I think that, I mean, if you look at some of the companies, well, one of your sponsors is huge into it, and I love what they're doing. I mean, that's the way to go now. I mean, in a lot of, doing virtual tours, not moving people around, etc. And it actually makes the worst thing in the world as a GM. When I was a GM, it was doing tours around the mine site. It was a pain in the backside, to be honest with you. And but if you can do them virtually and show people what you're doing and keep them up to date live, hey, that's a fantastic side benefit from COVID.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, once we're through this, you kind of get the benefits out of everything that we've learned in the last 6
Yes.
months. One more question. Besides Burkina Faso, what other jurisdictions do you like or feel we should keep an eye out on as the metal prices rise and more money starts flowing back into the industry?
Well, look, I do like West Africa, and the reason I like West Africa is you look at probably the past 10, 11 mines that have been built there. They've been permitted on time, they've been built at or under budget, and they've been built ahead of schedule or on schedule, and they start up and reach commercial production within 2 to 3 months. And I'm not sure that happens in Canada a lot anymore, or other places. I think Central America will start to become a focus again. I think mining has got a bad name down there, mainly from some of the age-old practices from the conquistadors, really. So I think there's great opportunity there. I think if we do it right, and I think I'm really cheering on Bluestone, great group of people. They're developing a mine in Guatemala. If they do that right, it could open things up again. And again, mining brings benefits, and we have to really advertise that. And if we do it right, I think people will see the benefits. And but I do think that Central America is underexplored and has got some real opportunity in terms of mining.
Another question. No one seems to want to give me their name, so they're all anonymous so far.
If I come and get them.
You've talked about lots of elements of your career. Is there any one moment or experience that was particularly pivotal when you look back?
Boy, I think there's a couple of people that influenced me. One was that guy at Anglo, Reg Haggett, who just stood by me and gave me all this advice in terms of, what to look for as a young engineer, and it just fired up my enthusiasm for the business. I think meeting Ron Nitaliski, boy, I can't speak highly enough of the guy as an exploration guy who's a true entrepreneur. Discovered Eskay Creek, SNEP, many other projects. Fantastic guy to travel with. The stories were out of this world. But he always taught me, and I didn't know anything about geology, but he always said to me, when you see a lot of gold around or something around, there's a system. Look for the system. Find somebody who can find the system. Ron, as an entrepreneurial geologist, was second to none. He was crazy, fun crazy, but just a fantastic guy and listening to him as when I was really starting into the public side of the business and learning that side, and it was an education, a true education around that guy.
So we're rounding out the hour. So I just, figure we'll leave with one last question. If you were going to leave our YMP members and our young professionals here kind of committed to mining, and I think hopefully going to see a better cycle than they've had to deal with in the last 10 years. If you're going to leave them with one takeaway towards a successful career, what would that be?
Ooh, one thing towards a successful career.
Big fan. If you want to do a couple, that's fine.
I just think always retain your enthusiasm, your questioning. Oh, I always want to know why things happen and what makes things happen, etc. Is be enthusiastic. If you're not enthusiastic, you're not going to be successful. I have never met a rich pessimist. Be optimistic and be around good people. It's a great business. I cannot speak highly enough of the people that I've met in the business. They're all good fun. They're all generally very honest and open. I mean, mining attracts some other types, but I ignore those people. The good people are guys who want to build companies, who want to make successful discoveries, who want to be innovative. It's a great business. So just be open-minded, and also, again, be caring. Mining, at the end of the day, we're mining in people's backyards, in people's neighborhoods, in people's villages. Be caring of people. Understand who they are. Understand where you work, and care for the people that you work around. And they will give you that back in spades.
Yeah, and I think that goes more than just in mining in life, right? Patty, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I always enjoy talking to you.
And finally, I think that the best piece of advice comes from Groucho Marx, the comedian, Groucho. So he said, look, to be successful in business, you must have honesty and integrity. And if you can fake those, you've got it made.
Hopefully you don't have to fake them. But thank you so much, Patty. Enjoy the rest of the evening. And thank you to everyone.
Be safe out there.
Yes, everyone be safe, and thank you for joining us. And thanks to all our sponsors. Thanks. See you guys.
Pleasure. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.